I want to ask you how you feel right now in these hard times. I mean, maybe it's not the first hard times we're living in. As you know, you're born during the Second World War. So anyways, it's a time where a woman like you maybe feels like being a little bit trapped. I don't know. Because when you were young, you were out in the forest, you were free, you were out there, right? Later, you were traveling a lot as an activist until I think Corona started
Right.
every week so far. So how do you feel right now when you are asked to stay at home?
Okay, well, first of all, I was frustrated and angry because I was just about to start a tour. Actually, I was coming to Austria very soon after the lockdown. And of course, I had to cancel everything. And some people were angry and said, well, you can't cancel. I said, well, I'm sorry, you tell the authorities that. Anyway, then we decided that being angry and frustrated was very useless. So we decided, I and some JGI, Jane Goodall Institute staff, we decided to create Virtual Jane. And Virtual Jane, honestly, I have never, ever in my entire life been as busy as I am now. Ever since March, I've been doing these things, interviews, podcasts, Zooms, webinars,
really?
video messages, virtual lectures, messages to various JGIs and roots and shoots and all the rest. I mean, it's just non-stop.
Wow, that's interesting, because I just wanted to ask you if it was a relief in a way after all these exhausting years.
No, it was much more exhausting. And, you know, when you travel, you can sit by yourself in the plane, you get to meet friends, you have nice dinners with wine and laugh and stuff. Here, it's just me. My family is here, but I have supper with my sister. And it's not good for eyes, it's not good for voice, but the bright side, the following I've had on social media has gone up by the millions. I've been in more countries than I could possibly have been if I'd been traveling. I mean, I've literally done events all over the world.
So you're getting the message out, although you're not flying all the time, although your mobility has changed, right?
Yeah, but it's more messages to more people in many more countries.
So maybe let's go into the topic of activism. The activism you started in the late 80s, as far as I know. So what is actually at the moment the main message that is important for you?
Okay, the main message is, first of all, of course, about the pandemic and the fact that we brought this on ourselves, really, by our complete disrespect of the natural world and animals. And we've created situations which make it relatively easy for things like this virus to jump from an animal to a person. And that's what happened. This pandemic was probably started in China, in a wildlife market, and it happened to be very contagious. And so it just went whizzing around the world. And now what do we see? All these mutations and new strains and running out of vaccine. It's disrupted, it's caused massive suffering. People have lost their lives, their loved ones. It's disrupted economy. People have lost their jobs.
Yeah, it might even get worse. England is really in a bad.
We don't see the nightmare ending soon because it keeps getting worse. It gets better and then it comes up again. And so that's one message, that, you know, we need a new relationship with the natural world and animals. And it's the same disrespect of the natural world that's led to climate change, which is an even greater threat to our future.
So these topics are really important as far as I see. So it's something that is here right now. We can feel it. Do you think that people realize that has something to do with the kind of life they are living?
People are beginning to understand. And, you know, we have this Roots and Shoots program for young people.
Mm-hmm.
all over Austria. It's in 86 countries now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sharing this message with young people about our
So,
unsustainable lifestyle, our, you know, the need to reduce poverty, the need to be better respect for animals and nature.
and this Roots and Shoots, it's already, as far as I know, 30 years old. So you started it with students, and the focus is on young people, bringing the message to their other young people, or to the whole world, or is it politically as well?
No, not political. It's not political. It's a program that now involves young people from kindergarten, university, even young people out of university, and everything in between. And basically, the main message is each one of us makes an impact on the planet every single day. And each group chooses, they choose. We don't dictate to them. It's grassroots, bottom up. And yes, some of them need guidance, the little ones, of course, and suggestions are made, and there are global campaigns, but basically a group will choose, but they must choose 3 different kinds of project: one to help people, one to help animals, one to help the environment.
And this is brought into schools or kindergartens and universities all around the world.
It's also family groups, homeschoolers. We've got some programs in old people's homes.
Okay.
Because it gives them a new reason for living. They get so excited. We've got it in orphanages. We've got it in prisons. Some prisons.
How many people are in prisons as well? So how many people are active in this Roots and Shoots?
We don't know. It changes because, you know, people are joined in a program at school and then they leave, or the university and then they leave. So we've got all these people who've been through the program, and they retain the values. And some of them now, you know, some of them are in politics and law, they're teachers, they're parents.
Oh, yes. And they have this on their mind, and they are doing things in this respect and for the society. Okay. Another question that also interests me. So you have been living in the wild for a long time in your life, out in the forest, so in communion in a way with nature. So do you think it would impact human life differently if people would live more out in the wild, let's say? Is there also something that you think about doing some kind of activism in this?
What's important is, and it's really bad that people have lost connection with the natural world, and we need it. We actually we're part of the natural world. We're not separate from it, although some people seem to think we can be. We depend on it for food, for air, for water. We're destroying it to our own peril. And one of the things we try to do in Roots and Shoots is encourage young people to go outside, to look at nature, to be in nature, to encourage schools to get the young people actually doing programs out in nature. And it's shown that in a city, if you take a big city, and I'll give the example of Chicago, there was several areas of high crime, gangs and all that sort of thing. So what they did, they took one of these areas of high crime and they greened it. They put trees and flowers in all the spaces. Crime dropped. Where they didn't do that, the crime stayed the same. And the other thing is that when you put trees and nature in a city, the people's health gets better. There's less need for them to get some kind of health problems. And it's psychological and physical, the benefit of nature.
What did it do personally to you to live in the wild? So you came from England, a very urban area maybe, and then you came to the forests and you stayed there.
Yeah, but we've got a big garden, lots of trees. We're near the sea.
Right now.
That's where I am now.
Yeah.
And I used to spend most of my time when I didn't have to be at school, outside. I watched birds, I watched animals. And so I dreamed of going to Africa when I was 10, and everybody laughed at me. How would I do that? World War II was raging, and we didn't have money. And Africa was far away and nobody knew much about it then. And people did not go out studying wild animals, living with them. But that's what I wanted to do. Even though I was just a girl, girls can't do that. But my mother supported me. She said, if you really want this, you're going to have to work awfully hard, take advantage of every opportunity. If you don't give up, maybe you'll find a way. And that's the message I take to young people all around the world, especially in disadvantaged communities. Don't give up.
Okay, so your idea was to be to do this. You're focused on chimpanzees. Do you think it would have been different or a different relationship if it would have been maybe ants or insects or something?
When I went to Africa, I would have studied anything to be out in the wild. My goal wasn't chimps. I hadn't even thought of chimpanzees, not at all. I mean, nobody knew anything about chimpanzees. I wouldn't have dreamed of being able to do anything as exotic as that. I would have studied ants. I would have studied anything to be out in the field.
I see. Okay.
And my goal was to learn about them, learn from them, and write books about them and share that with other people. That was the dream. I didn't want to be a scientist.
Well, you're talking about a dream, and it seems to me you very much fulfilled your own dream. So you lived it. You're still living it. Was there something you, in a way, had to sacrifice for this dream? Because you always say, "Wow, you live your dream. It's the best thing that can happen to someone." But did you have to sacrifice?
Well, see, I didn't. Some people might have. They might have missed, good meals. They might have missed, I don't know. But as it was what I wanted to do, I have very simple needs. I don't care about food. Yes, we need some food to live. But, I got married. I had a child. I didn't really sacrifice anything. I missed my family.
Okay.
But I saw them, every time I left Gombe, I came home. So coming back to civilization would have been a big shock if I hadn't had home to come to, where home was the same. It was just where I grew up.
So if you're talking about civilization, why do you say shock? So how do you get along with technology and all the things that are in this world right now? I mean, the world has changed a lot since you were young and where it's now.
When I grew up, there wasn't even any television.
Yeah.
Learn anything else. And we learn from books. Books have always, some of these books you see behind me were books I read as a child. And now we do use, we have to use, computers and all that sort of thing. But I didn't miss that because I never knew it. It's grown up with me. So.
Okay. But you were always interested also in this side of the world. So not only in nature, but also in what is happening in technology, what is happening in, I don't know, what is making the world even better in a way?
Or worse.
Or worse. Or you think it's more this...
Well, it's got many benefits, but it's got many downsides too. Young people are spending so much time on their little gadgets and Facebook and all this, that they're missing out on nature. And it's damaging their psychology. It really is. So the reason I got involved with some of the new technology is the useful part of it. Using it like we use DNA analysis to find out the relationship between the different chimps and which male has fathered which children. We use all the local people around Gombe have learned how to use smartphones, and they monitor the health of their forests.
Yes.
And so we use GIS, GPS satellite imagery. We use it to look at the chimpanzee range. We use it in many, many different ways. Not me particularly, but we make use of it.
Yeah.
And digitizing the data going back to 1960. Not me, I don't do that, but it's being done to make it useful for students around the world.
A short question. When did you see the last time the chimpanzees, your family in a way?
just before the pandemic.
So you went there every year and
twice every year, but briefly.
Okay.
And, you know, there's only 2 chimpanzees left now that I actually know.
Oh, really?
Old days.
Still, yeah. There's two left from how many?
Well, I used to know about 70.
Oh, wow.
But, you know, they can live to 50 years, 60 years. And the ones I knew, you see, were way back in the 60s. That's when I really knew them, 60s, 70s. And then after that, I was spending more time away. So there were young ones being born that I never got to really know.
Ah, okay. So you just saw them, but you did not really bond and relationship with them.
Yeah, well, I didn't bond with the others, but I knew them like family members.
Yeah. Concerning this, there is one topic that interests me. The chimpanzees are in a way the closest relatives, as we know, in the animal world to us humans. And from your research or from studies, we know it is a male-dominated society, let's say. What do you think? Is there a difference to humans? Because as you experience, the same as me, things are a little bit changing in the human world. So there is this big topic of gender equality. I mean, you saw the chimpanzees. Did you see changes in their societies? And do you think that there are changes happening in our society? Is it really possible to have a less male-dominated society? Or how do you see this topic?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the big difference, I believe, between us and chimpanzees is the development of our intellect. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean intelligence. If you're intelligent, you don't destroy your only home, which is what we're doing, but the intellect, so we can design rockets that go up to Mars or the moon, something like that. It's amazing, our intellect. And I think that was triggered by the fact that at some point we started communicating with words. So for the first time, we could teach our children about things that weren't there. We could explain our experiences. We could have meetings and discuss different points of view. We could try and solve problems. And so as we began to be able to communicate with words, we began to develop a moral system, what's right and what's wrong, to discuss it. And that's now led to something like gender equality. Mm-hmm. So basically, we have always, as humans, lived in a male-dominated society, except 1 or 2, you know, were the Amazons who were the women, but basically it's been male-dominated.
No matriarchs.
Very often you find that women in the background are actually doing far more in primitive groups than you might imagine, having a big influence. But basically, yes, we have lived in a male-dominated society, and male humans and male chimps, you know, they're stronger, they've got the testosterone. So it's not really surprising. It's the same in many animal groups. And it's basically because women are supposed to be raising the children. That's been their evolutionary job. And so if your job is to be a good mother in evolution, then it's no good going out having battles and exposing your child to danger. So you're dominated by the males. And now we've reached the stage in our evolution, our cultural evolution, where we can begin to discuss these things and say, is it fair? After all, women are just as intelligent or more so than men. And, you know, we need to And so these things are now talked about. That's the difference. And chimps can't talk about it.
Yeah. And you think it's a good thing. So what would you advise young girls? Or do you think it's a good way this topic is going? I mean, these things are the things
Well,
that...
what I say to young women, I say, look, don't demand equality. Prove that you're equal. Get out there and show that you can do as well as your male colleagues. Don't spend all your time fighting for equality, because maybe you can't do it as well. Maybe you can't. Some people can, some people can't. We're all different. So what I say to the girls is, get out there and prove it. Spend more energy proving you're good than spending that energy on demanding rights. Let other people demand rights for you.
That's what you did yourself.
Yeah, prove you deserve them, you know?
Yeah, thank you. Good thing to think about. So like, do it and not talk about it. I listened to your Hopecast. So the last one with Dave.
Dave Matthews.
Right. And there is something that stayed in my mind. It's called Hopecast, and there is so much hope in all the topics, projects you're putting your energy in. So, but anyways, you said something like the window we humans have living on this planet is pretty small and is closing in. So this does not really make me feel hopeful. Why did you put it like that?
Sorry, I missed what you said.
You said the window we humans have living the window we humans have been living on this planet is pretty small and is closing in.
No, the reason I said that is because there is hope, but we've got to take action now. Okay. It's a sense of urgency. And, you know, when my Roots and Shoots groups in Tanzania, where it all began, at the end of when they come together to share their projects and things, when they come together, at the end, they all say, together we can, meaning we can change the world and save the world. And I said, yes, we can, indeed we can, but will we? So now they say, together we can, together we will change the world.
Hopefully, because you also said things have gone worse since you started. So yeah. When will be the turning point? Hopefully now, or?
Well, if it isn't now, it may be too late. So that's the thing. And that's the message. Yes, we can do it. Yes, we have the brains, we have the technology, we have the know-how. And there's a huge movement right now, which is what I'm involved in changing our agricultural system, because that is one of the main drivers of climate change. Because intensive animal farming, you destroy huge areas of habitat to grow the grain. We're growing more grain to feed animals than people, and there are people starving. The animals are treated horribly cruelly. And also in our industrial agriculture, growing crops, we're destroying the land. We spray it all with chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, too much fertilizer, and all the runoff from that and industrial waste goes flowing into the rivers and the sea. It's polluting the ocean. And then you've got to lift people out of poverty, because when you're really poor, you can't make the right decision. You have to cut down the trees to grow more food or make charcoal, get some money. You have to buy junk food, cheap junk food, because you've got to survive. You can't make the choices we can make. Is this product made ethically? Did it harm the environment? Was it cruel to animals? Is it cheap because of child slave labor? Those sort of things.
Okay, so I'm just a little missed out because we don't have a lot of time left and I have so many questions. Maybe I ask a little bit more personal question. I have two at least left. Well, maybe before that, another thing. Yeah, you talked about the greatest. Okay. Are you a vegetarian? Just a short question, because there is this.
Been a vegetarian since the late 60s, and I joined the Vegan for January movement. I have been totally vegan the whole of January, which is hard on the road, but at home it's been much easier.
Okay. I have a personal question. I dare to ask it because I'm very deep in this right now. My father and my mother died a month ago, both of them in a row. So it's hard times in a way. My mother from Corona. And well, are you sometimes thinking about settling down, like letting someone else do your work? Like, are you sometimes thinking about death?
Never. I think about death. I think, to me, after death, there's either nothing or there's something. And I think the most exciting adventure of my life will be finding out what the something is after death. So what we fear is the dying part of it, the sickness, the illness. That's not nice to think about. But actually thinking about death itself, I just see it as an exciting new adventure.
That's great. Sounds great. Dying part. We we were with our dad for the last 2 weeks, and it was really a special experience. Yeah. I can say. One more.
If you've got more questions, why don't you send them to me by email? Doris will do that. I can answer them by email.
Okay, can I ask one more, only one little more question?
Yes,
and
yes, you can. Yes.
What do you think Jane Goodall is best at?
Is what?
Best at. What's the thing you're best at?
Well, you should ask somebody else, but I think probably communicating with people, getting people inspired to take action. That's probably what I do best right now.
Okay.
Jane, I think we need to invite Birgit to our next lecture when you're in Austria, so she can see what we are best in.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And by the way, Doris, I have some really good lectures that I've done virtually. I've got quite good at that. It's very difficult because, you like to have a big audience, you get the feedback and people. I have to do a lecture looking at that little green spot of a camera on top of my laptop and try and get as much energy into it. But apparently I do. So it's good.
Yes and no. We're thinking about that, Jane.
Very difficult, very difficult.
Absolutely.
I'm a lecturer too, and it's really hard because sometimes they only put their names there and you don't even see a face. So it's really hard to talk and to keep the energy up. Yeah.
I know. I've had to learn that. That's my latest skill.
That you came again, so I'm really, really happy about that. And I wish you all the best and a lot of success for the
world needs it, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
That's something the media can do. One last thing I'll say, share the good news, because there's so much gloom in the media, which is right, we need to know, but share the good news stories, share the amazing people doing amazing things, share the regeneration of nature, animals rescued from the brink of extinction. It's all out there, and I've got blogs about it, so share that.